the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., there's a blue diamond sitting behind bulletproof glass. It weighs 45.5 carats, glows red under ultraviolet light, and almost everyone who's ever owned it has died badly. The stone is called the Hope Diamond, and its story starts in the year 1666 with a French merchant in India who performed a theft so brazen it angered a goddess. Somewhere in southern India, deep inside a Hindu temple, there stood a statue of the goddess Sita. 2 enormous blue diamonds were set into her face as eyes. A French gem trader named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier was traveling the subcontinent buying stones for European royalty. He'd already made 6 trips. He knew exactly what he was looking at. According to the curse story, Tavernier either bought the stone from a thief or pried it loose himself. Either way, one of Sita's eyes left the temple, wrapped in cloth, headed for Paris. The priests are said to have placed a curse on whoever held the stone next. Tavernier didn't seem worried. He sold it to King Louis XIV in 1668 for a fortune and went home rich. Then, the story goes, Tavernier returned to Russia in his old age, lost his money, and was torn apart by a pack of wild dogs in the streets. At Versailles, Louis XIV had the rough stone cut down into a 67-carat heart shape and renamed it the French Blue. He wore it on a ribbon around his neck for state occasions, set in gold. His reign ended in misery. Wars drained the treasury, his children and grandchildren died one after another, and Louis himself died of gangrene in 1715, his leg black to the bone. The diamond passed down through the French crown. Louis XV had it reset into a ceremonial piece called the Order of the Golden Fleece, a tangle of gold, rubies, and the giant blue stone hanging at the center. Then it came to Marie Antoinette. She borrowed the stone often, wore it to court, and loaned it to friends. One of those friends, the Princesse de Lamballe, would later be beaten to death by a Paris mob and have her head paraded on a pike. Marie Antoinette went to the guillotine in October 1793. Her husband, Louis XVI, had gone 9 months before. The royal jewels, including the French blue, were locked in a storehouse called the Garde Meuble. In September 1792, during 5 chaotic nights, looters broke into the Garde Meuble and emptied it. The French blue vanished. For 20 years, nobody knew where it was. Then, in 1812, a blue diamond surfaced in London. Smaller now, recut to 45 carats to disguise it, but the color was unmistakable. The timing was almost too perfect. It appeared just 2 days after the French statute of limitations on the theft expired. It eventually landed with a London banker named Henry Philip Hope, one of the richest men in England. He paid a fortune for it. The stone took his name. From that point on, it was the Hope Diamond. Henry Philip died without an heir. The diamond passed to his nephews, who fought bitterly in court for years. The family that had been one of the wealthiest in Britain slowly came apart. By 1901, Henry Philip's great-grandnephew, Lord Francis Hope, was broke. He'd married an American showgirl, blown through his inheritance, and had to petition the courts for permission to sell the diamond just to pay his debts. The stone bounced through a string of buyers over the next few years, and every single one of them ran into ruin. A Russian prince named Kanitovsky supposedly gave it to a French dancer at the Folies Bergère, then shot her dead from his theater box on her opening night. Kanitovsky himself was stabbed to death by revolutionaries soon after. A Greek jeweler named Simon Mancharides got the diamond next, drove off a cliff in his car with his wife and child, and all 3 died. Then it reached Sultan Abdulhamid II of the Ottoman Empire. He gave it to his favorite wife, Subaya, then in a fit of rage stabbed her to death. Within months, he was overthrown and exiled. The diamond was sold off to pay the deposed Sultan's debts. In 1910, it ended up on the desk of Pierre Cartier in Paris, a jeweler who understood exactly how valuable a cursed stone could be if you sold it right. Cartier had a buyer in mind. Her name was Evalyn Walsh McLean, daughter of an Irish gold miner who'd struck it rich in Colorado, married to the heir of the Washington Post fortune. She loved jewelry, scandal, and being the center of attention. Cartier met her at the Hotel Bristol in Paris. He laid out the diamond on black velvet and told her every grisly story attached to it. The temple theft, the dead queens, the dancers, the Sultan. Evalyn was hooked. She bought it in 1911 for the equivalent of about $5 million in today's money. She had a priest bless it. She wore it to parties on a chain around her neck. She let her Great Dane wear it sometimes, just for fun. But the fun and games didn't last long. Her mother-in-law died first. Then her 9-year-old son, Vincent, was hit by a car right outside the family estate. He'd been the heir to one of the great American fortunes. Her husband, Edward, started drinking heavily. He left her for another woman, lost control of the Washington Post, and was eventually committed to a mental institution where he died in 1941. Her daughter, also named Evalyn, married a U.S. senator and died of a sleeping pill overdose at age 25. Evalyn Sr. wore the Hope Diamond to her daughter's funeral. Evalyn died in 1947, bankrupt in everything but the jewels. Her estate sold the Hope Diamond to settle her debts. The buyer was a New York gem dealer named Harry Winston. Harry Winston owned the diamond for a decade and toured it around the country for charity. Then, in 1958, he decided to do something nobody had ever done with a stone that valuable. He donated it to the Smithsonian. And he didn't send it by armored car. He mailed it, wrapped in brown paper and registered first-class postage. The package weighed less than a pound. The postman who delivered it to the museum was named James Todd. Within a year of the delivery, his leg was crushed under a truck. Not long after, his head was injured in a separate accident. Then his wife died. Then his dog died. Then his house burned to the ground. When reporters asked him if he believed in the curse, Todd just laughed and said he didn't believe in any of that. Here's where the historians push back. Tavernier probably wasn't eaten by dogs. He died of natural causes around age 84. The Princess de Lamballe never actually wore the stone. Some of the Russian and Greek owners in the curse story may not have existed at all. A lot of the lurid backstory was invented or embellished by Pierre Cartier himself to make the sale to Evalyn McLean irresistible. The curse was, at least in part, a marketing campaign. But the documented suffering of the real owners is harder to wave away. Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were beheaded. The Hope family fortune did collapse. Evalyn McLean really did bury her son, her daughter, and her husband while wearing the stone. You can argue it's pattern recognition. When you own a famous diamond for decades, eventually something terrible happens to someone you love. The stone just happens to be in the room. The Hope Diamond is still at the Smithsonian. About 7 million people walk past it every year. It sits in a rotating case, glowing faintly under the lights, and nobody who works there will say out loud whether they'd take it home if they could.